Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, early Monday morning edition, mid-July 2024. The heat warnings continue every day. I think it's going to break by midweek, but in the shop it's not too bad. Temperature-wise, thanks for the folks that commented on my last video that said the fan in the background in the last potting shot wasn't too much of a deterrent. But it's only 5:30 in the morning and I have it shut off right now. And I'm on about take 52 of trying to shoot this video. I keep making mistakes, more than usual. So here we go again. Between the last video and now, the first video on stripping this transmission, I was able to spray penetrating oil on the pump area and the bolts on the driver's side of the case because standard practice, remove the speed sensors so you don't damage them pulling out the internals. I was a little nervous because of the dryness of this case. I got some corrosion issues with the steel bolts and the aluminum. But with a little bit of luck anyway, I managed to get the small bolts out of the speed sensors. The back one came out pretty easy. The front one broke. So the original outside is still stuck in the case. So it'll be a good experiment to see if it gets in the way trying to remove stuff. Because if I can get stuff out and tap it out from the inside, it's only going to be easier. So it's already broken. We can't do any more damage. To remove the front pump, GM does list a Kentmore J tool. It clamps on the splines of the stator tube and pushes on the input shaft. Pretty normal. I have a clamp on one, not a Kentmore. It's an eBay. It doesn't work that good. And I managed to pop the pump up. I've already done it, experimenting, because it was quite corroded. And I'm not sure it was going to make for a good video, me sitting there beating on the pump for 10 minutes. But it wasn't that bad. There's two openings here. And I start with a gentle pry with my big screwdriver. And that was getting me nowhere, so I continued to pry gently and tapped on the case with a rubber hammer, tapped on these studs, or these bosses right here. Nothing, so I took my brass drift and a rubber hammer and smacked it sideways, and that broke it loose. And then I was able to pop it up. So I didn't hurt anything, that's the goal. As I mentioned, this is the 1999 transmission. A transition year for internal parts. So I really don't want to go mix and matching. I currently am looking at a really nice core, other than being a little corroded. And for its intended application, it's going to live a happy life on the street in a convertible Chevelle. So it is a lot of transmission for going to get ice cream, which is awesome. So overbuilt is never a bad thing. All right, let's get busy. And yes, my name is not Chris, it's Sean, S-H-A-W-N, just a shirt. That's all it is. So let's continue popping the pump out. Forgot to put my glasses on, but I don't think I'm going to do anything dangerous. So everything on a 480E is just that much heavier than everything else. So without tripping on my drain pan, we can lift out the pump. I'm going to be taking the individual components apart afterwards. So we've already taken a bolt. I'm sorry, weird noise. We've already taken the bolt out of the fourth clutch housing, but first we'll take out the overrun clutch, which includes the input shaft. Next we can grab the entire fourth clutch housing and slide it right out. So that was pretty much the overdrive section. Now, the rest of it's very similar to a Turbo 400, even though things look a little different at first. The forward clutch housing is next. GM or Kentmore makes a really cool tool to grab it. I don't have one. But before I do, it has a tone ring on the forward clutch housing for the front speed sensor. And I can see it has quite a gap, and while that forward clutch is still there, maybe I could pop out the speed sensor. Nope, she's stuck. So, again, the actual tool is really handy, but if you just grab it you can get it out, but again, it has a tone ring on the outside. This side starts to look familiar. You know, back to normal Tober 400 stuff, because the 480E is, of course, an overgrown Turbo 400 with an overdrive stuck on the front. The direct clutch housing is next, and as you know, if you watch my channel, that's a part we retrofit into the Turbo 400. So my method is this big angled pick to grab it and get it out. Again, they do make a special tool I don't have. You can take the clutches out, which would make it easier, but I just like to grab it, pull it. As I say that, it gets caught. Okay. Should have the 34 elements brag already installed. Next, we have the manual second band for engine braking. And 99, this could be narrow or wide. So we'll measure that. It looks wide. Now we have the intermediate snap ring and the intermediate clutches. And this is textbook. The snap ring is probably still in its originally installed position. A lot of times they migrate down and make it difficult to come out, but this one is not going to give me any trouble. The intermediate snap ring, just like a Turbo 400, really weak. Good spot to improve for the heavy duty one. Intermediate clutches. This is why I wear an old shirt, because I'm just putting my back of my arms in ATF. Actually looks pretty nice. 4 clutch unit, pretty standard. The intermediate clutches have this wavy washer underneath with locators that actually fit into the spring retainer on the center support near the apply piston for the intermediate clutches. Extra pieces that you're not used to seeing if you're a Turbo 400 guy. Now, the beveled snap ring that holds the center support in, it has migrated down in a bad spot, making it more difficult to get out. Unfortunately for me, but we'll get it. Start with a bigger screwdriver, maybe. When they migrate down, you go to pry it away from the case and it just hits the case. So, kind of a pain. Boom. Now I can use my lower gear train lifting unit. I love this tool. There's other ways to do it. You can pull the center support out and then grab the rest, but I like taking it in and out in one piece. It's just so much easier. So I have everything else removed, I believe. As I say that, I see the Park and Paul bracket still there, so let's just take that out of the way. It should clear, but why have the stress of having it hit? So I'll leave the spring on it that pulls it out of the way. Find me a landing spot for this rig. Here we go. That is after you remove the rear cooler line fitting that has an extension that fits in to the center support to lube the rear of the transmission. Lube tube. Last but not least, the selective washer and the thrust washer for the rear of the case. The fretting ring that the center support sits on, and the rear band. which normally pops right out of there, but that's not the MO today, apparently. There we go. Still left to remove, like we mentioned in the last video. Carefully get this nail out of here. It has flutes on it that hold it into the case. That is holding the manual shaft in. Of course, there's a nut that holds the rooster on. I have some corrosion issues to deal with on the outside to get the factory linkage off. I did manage to get the bolts out of the neutral safety switch, which is bolted on the side over here. So once I get this free, that will come off. I use a big socket to compress the little tangs that hold the electrical pass-through through the case. Still need to pop the spring off the parking pawl. And weld nuts onto the linkage bracket to get that out of the case. And then, like I might have already said, the real work begins. Clean the case, prep and paint, and then overhaul each individual component. So it's a part, nothing to be afraid of. Again, if you're down a Turbo 400, a lot of it's very similar. Other things like the rear cooler fitting, stuff like that, will snag you up. If you grab onto something and expect it to move and it doesn't, stop and think what you forgot. So that's the easiest way to do it. And that's it for today. Stay cool. I'll catch you in a few.